There is nothing more heartwarming than a dog saving a human's life. Like, come on now. I'm gonna react to a video of a guide dog who saved a blind man in the Twin Towers during 9/11. That alone is like leaving me speechless, and I haven't even started watching the video, and I am utterly mind blown. I feel like this story is not well known enough, and I'm obsessed because I've been a guide dog user for over 18 years. I'm on my 4th guide dog. They are life-changing. It is my favorite thing about being blind is that I get to bring a dog everywhere with me, and it truly does make me feel more safe, more confident, more independent. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Here we go. Play.
On September 11th, 2001, Michael Hinkson and his guide dog Roselle were on the 78th floor of the North Tower of the World Trade Center. He ran the Quantum Mid-Atlantic office, managing sales and operations. His windowed office space overlooked the southwest corners of New York City. Roselle, a Labrador retriever, was his trusted companion, there to guide him each day. At the time, the pair had been a team for less than 2 years.
Wow.
Michael was born premature in 1950. He was blind, and his condition was irreversible.
I would say, in my experience having gotten 4 guide dogs, the whole first year of your partnership is crucial and is very difficult. I feel like the first month post-training is a huge adjustment period. Then it jumps to like the next 6 months. And then once you hit that 1-year mark, you're like a fully formed, bonded team. All the trust is there. You know each other inside and out. You understand each other's little quirks and tics and like, you know, how to work together. But every single guide dog is so different. So being only 2 years into their partnership is like pretty early on as a team, but they're over that like 1-year initial hump of trying to like build that connection.
So, every day, while Michael worked, Roselle was perched comfortably underneath his desk, usually napping, but always ready for his direction. But that fateful morning, right at 8:46 a.m., a loud boom shook the building.
When the aircraft hit the building literally tipped. We were on the 78th floor, so they're very flexible, so literally it tipped like a spring would.
That is
A Boeing
horrifying.
767 American Airlines Flight 11 had struck the North Tower, cutting through floors 93 through 99 at a speed of 500 miles per hour. It was an instant inferno.
My colleague in the office, David Frank, started shouting, "Oh my God, there's fire and smoke above us. We got to get out of here right now." And I kept saying, "David, slow down." Because next to me was my guide dog, Roselle.
I am like just getting like a tight chest just hearing him say like, slow down, because I've been in a number of emergency situations, and I've made multiple videos over the years about dealing with emergency situations as a blind person. And when you have a disability, particularly one that affects your mobility like blindness does, being in an emergency is an incredibly vulnerable situation to find yourself in and very scary, especially having a sensory disability, which not just impacts your mobility, but impacts your ability to see and understand what's happening around you. And when everybody else is panicking, you can't even like understand what's going on. Like it takes us longer to understand what's happening and then to navigate out of it when people are running, throwing things are falling. There's more chaos and sounds happening around you. As a blind person, we use auditory cues to navigate. Like, I totally understand him being like, slow down, because it like, you have to like, it's just the circumstance of being disabled in an emergency is so different. And you just pray to God that somebody is going to be there to help you. And obviously in his circumstance, at bare minimum, Roselle, his guide dog, was that person for him.
I woke up, looked around. It was clear to Michael that she did not sense any immediate danger.
What I observed was her reactions. She was sitting, wagging her tail and yawning and going, "Who woke me up?" That told me that we could try to evacuate in an orderly way,
Innocent
and
dog.
panicking wasn't going to help.
So Michael and his colleague
Very
walked
smart.
their guests to the staircase, came back and swept the office for any stragglers, began making their way down the grueling 1,463 steps.
Okay, one thing I'm curious about is if he had his guide dog on harness under his desk or not. Because if I worked an office job, which I have in the past, I would typically take my dog off harness if I'm like just sitting at my desk for a couple of hours. Same way I have it off harness at home or when I'm just hanging out at a friend's house and I don't need my guide dog to be actively guiding me. I would typically take the harness off. Potentially, I would keep the dog tied down, so where their leash is like looped around, say, the leg of my chair or my desk. But potentially, if I had a private office and my door was closed, I would just literally have the dog free roaming, perhaps have a bed and a water bowl in the corner. That adds an extra element because things like grabbing the harness, putting the harness on, taking your dog off a tie down, all of those things add extra time to evacuating. It's not like just being able to get up and run out like other people may be able to. It's like all of these steps you need to do just to be able to get out the door.
Most everyone who made it out was because they were below where the plane hit. And so, yeah, our people had a good start because they were out of the office and starting down the stairs by probably about, 8:48.
Michael first met Roselle in 1999. She was his 5th guide dog. Though blind from birth, he says he never felt handicapped. He'd spent most of his life on the West Coast, but in 1996, he moved from Palmdale, California to Westfield, New Jersey, later getting a sales management job in the World Trade Center. With any new building he worked in, he made sure to become familiar with the environment, memorizing emergency exits, fire safety routes, and so on.
When you go in somewhere and you deal with anything that you deal with, you do it from a standpoint of eyesight. So when you're in a building, if there's a need to evacuate, you look at the signs. Well, I know that that doesn't work for me. Signs and I don't get along very well. I literally would walk the halls and walk on the first floor between the buildings and inside and learn where all the kiosks were and all the shops were in the shopping mall, learn where all the elevators were. And I did that because it was as likely if there were an emergency that I would be the only person in our office. That all put me in a mindset that if something happened, I'm going to know what to do. And of course, that's what.
So it's so incredibly important as blind people to like know our safe routes, be prepared. But I'll admit, like sometimes going into new spaces, like checking out where emergency exits are is not on my radar, especially as somebody who travels frequently. I can't tell you that I get to every hotel and I'm like, I should make sure I know where the exit is, the emergency routes. And I should be more diligent. And I think likely the fact that he had done that for himself and had made sure to practice and walk those routes and have them memorized is a huge part of what kept him safe, because as we know, guide dogs and handlers are a team and they play an equal role in being successful. Roselle can only do so much if Michael doesn't know how to properly direct and command her. So we should all take a note out of Michael's book and be more diligent, particularly as blind people, at rehearsing routes, knowing our emergency exits in new environments, because you never know when you will find yourself alone and unfortunately needing that emergency escape.
Up in Stairwell B that day, this very mindset helped him stay calm. His blindness, Michael says, was not a limitation.
The airplane hit 18 floors above me on the other side of the building. What was there to see? On the stairs, no one knew what was going on.
As a seasoned salesman at that point in his career, Michael had traveled hundreds of thousands of miles by plane. In the staircase that morning, he recalls the distinct smell of jet fuel. Says that he remembers the air tasting like a shot of kerosene. As people filed into the stairway, it was a mostly quiet scene. They all kept to the right. There was no pushing. There was no shoving. And though they still had no idea what exactly was happening, they knew their best chance at survival was to move forward, one step at a time.
It is so crucial that everybody stayed calm and walked in an orderly fashion on one side of the stairwell. And I feel like as a blind person, that was probably also a huge contributing factor to making it a lot easier for both him and his guide dog. Well, dogs can be really great at navigating dense groups of people. Like my guide dog, he thrives in that environment. It is a particularly difficult skill and not all guide dogs can. In fact, a lot of people will choose to go sighted guide even when they have their guide dog in dense crowds where people are kind of chaotically moving. So I feel like it's also very fortunate that everybody else around him kind of stayed calm and stuck to this like orderly fashion of filing out.
Michael says he tried to remain calm, maintained a strong grip on Rozelle's harness.
The dog does best when I give good, solid commands and sound confident. All the way down the stairs, the fact that I kept just telling Rozelle, what a good dog, you're doing a great job, helped a lot of other people because they saw me just focusing and going down the stairs and being in charge of my situation.
At about the 50th floor,
I feel like as guide dog handlers, our guide dogs are our children, and Michael's so right. Like, the way that we command them makes a huge difference. If I act unsure and scared, Elton responds with less confidence. Just the same way parents almost like stay calm to not upset their child, that we're able to like do that with our guide dogs. And it's another great reason to have a guide dog is like, it actually forces you to emotionally regulate. Having a guide dog forces you to get outside and exercise more simply because they need that exercise. It forces you to get out of bed because they need to be fed, they need to go out to pee. So there's so many great benefits that come from having a guide dog beyond just the like literal physical navigation that they provide. And I feel like that's such a special point that he made, like that he was forced to stay calm so that Rozelle could actually perform at her peak. And that helped everybody around him feel comforted. So special. Like, that's such a moving scene in my head to think about.
Michael's colleague began feeling anxious, doubting whether or not they'd be able to make it out.
I just said, stop it, David. If Rozelle and I could go down these stairs, so can you.
From that point on, David walked one floor ahead, sharing what he saw with the rest of the group as they made their way down.
By him doing that, he gave anyone within the sound of his voice something to focus on, to keep them from panicking. And I know that by him shouting up all the time, hey, Mike, 26th floor, somebody just opened up a water vending machine. We're going to be passing up water bottles. Whether they were below him or above him, they heard him, and they heard him sounding calm. That had to help
incredible.
Lots of people on the stairs.
Michael continued his descent with the group of people from the top of the tower, getting closer to safety one flight of stairs at a time. Though tired, thirsty, and still in disbelief of what had happened less than 30 minutes prior, Michael, Rozelle, his colleague, and their 5 guests all made it out of the North Tower alive. When they got down to the lobby, both were met by a nearby NYPD officer who warned the pair of the building's imminent collapse, instructing them to run for cover. As they ran, Rozelle guided Michael through the dust-filled streets of Lower Manhattan, eventually ushering him to safety inside a subway station.
It's hard not to feel emotional watching this. I think whether you're blind or not, like, this is just such an emotional story. I mean, the entire 9/11 situation is incredibly emotional, and hearing survival stories like this of all of these people working as a team, the way that not only Rozelle helped Michael, but how his colleague David acted as audio description, which again, not only helped Michael, but helped everybody else. The way Michael, encouraging David to keep going, giving positive reinforcement to Rozelle. Like, every single person played a vital role in making sure that everybody in that group got out. And I could only hope that in an emergency situation, I would have somebody like David giving me audio description and supporting me, and that my guide dog would be there to help me in this manner as well. And hearing things like run as a blind person is another thing. It's like, it's not that easy. Like, sighted people can just run. If you have no disability and you're sighted, like, it's easy to just run. That is not easy with a guide dog. It's not easy with a cane, especially, again, in chaos, where even if you're like super familiar with your surroundings, there's all sorts of sounds that are unfamiliar. Sirens, all sorts of people screaming, crying, all of the first responders talking, you're smelling the jet fuel, smoke, like helicopters, I'm sure, like overhead capturing footage. Like, I am sure there's so many more people and chaos around you, all of which makes it harder to navigate, let alone run through. And then not all guide dogs are trained to be able to run. There are guide dog schools like Guiding Eyes for the Blind that do have a running dog program for people who are blind and do enjoy recreationally running. There are commands, like for me, my guide dog school does train aller, which is like fast, speed up. So like if I say that, my dog will like trot versus walk. But I equally know a lot of guide dog teams that don't have any command similar to that, and therefore would have to rely on a sighted person being willing to do sighted guide and having the dog in a heel position and then running together.
She did exactly what she was supposed to do, that she stopped at the top of a flight of stairs that took us down into the Fulton Street subway station.
He never let go of her leash. She never wavered from her job.
Her job is to make sure that we walk safe. My job absolutely is to know where to go and how to get there.
When the pair finally got home to New Jersey, it took some time to process what had happened that September morning. But when Rozelle's harness came off, she was a normal dog, just like that.
We got home that night, and the first thing I did is I took her harness off. I was going to take her outside, but she was off like a shot to find her favorite tug bone and my retired guide dog, Linny, and they started playing tug of war.
She was done with her job.
Dogs like that. They like to know what's expected of them.
To this day, Michael says that Rozelle was one of the most easygoing dogs that he had ever known. She loved sleeping, walking, and her Nyla Bone toy. She played when she could and worked when she had to, and she always took her job seriously. Rozelle lived until the age of 14. She died in the summer of 2011, 10 years ago.
She contracted a disease called immune-mediated thrombocytopenia, or IMT for short. Obviously, on September 11th, there were toxins, and we think that that might have been the genesis. She lived a good life.
Today, Michael is working with his 8th guide dog, a black lab named Alamo. He lives in Southern California with his wife, and until 2008, he worked for Guide Dogs for the Blind, the same organization where he'd met his trusted companion all those years ago. He's a public speaker now, a best-selling author, and works for Accessibility, a product that makes websites more accessible for blind people. He is their chief vision officer. Now, he lives his life trying to help others see his mantra. Blind people can accomplish incredible things if they're given the chance.
Yes.
Looking back, Michael says he's grateful for his 4-legged guide dog, the one who kept him and others calm while guiding her human down 78 grueling flights of stairs. 20 years after that dreadful day, he reflects on 9/11 with a somber spirit and a grateful heart.
I wasn't blinded by fear, and I use that term very deliberately because most people, when something unexpected happens to them, or they have an unexpected life change event that occurs, they're afraid and they don't know what to do. They freeze. They're blinded by fear. The reality is, I'm not going to tell you you shouldn't be unafraid. What I'm telling you is that you should learn to control your fears and use your fears to help you make better decisions rather than just letting them overwhelm you.
Well, what an incredibly emotional and heartwarming story to come out of such a tragic day. It was so good to hear that when they got home that night, like Rozelle just went back to completely acting like a normal doggo when her harness came off, and that she wasn't displaying any like trauma or phobia responses, because guide dogs are amazing dogs, but they are not robots. They can make mistakes, they can develop phobias, and they can develop phobias that end their careers. She was only 2 years into hers and was clearly an incredible guide dog, so I am so happy that she did not seem to develop anything like that, because there would be good reason to, truly. And she's clearly so cut out for this, both in her breeding and her training. She has the correct temperament, the correct training to have stayed like completely calm throughout it, as well as afterwards, and go on to have an incredible career. I mean, 14 years old is a very long life for a Labrador Retriever. So it seems like she had a full career and a full life despite developing that health condition. Oh, what like a beautiful story. Yeah, I'm left feeling so in awe. Obviously, like I am well aware, being a guide dog handler myself, that these dogs are incredible, are life-changing, are capable of so much more than I think people give dogs credit for. But hearing stories like that just solidifies it. So I hope this was, despite the fact that it's like an emotional thing, I hope it was also like heartwarming and uplifting this holiday season to see beautiful stories like that in this kind of chaotic world that we live in. And until next time, you can click over here to watch another heartwarming doggo video, or you can click over here to watch this video that I recently posted. Okay, bye.